what really did it in for me was two things. One, my upline was stealing money from me. And two, they were manipulating my downline's lives. And I all of a sudden something triggered in me and I wasn't okay with that anymore. I was like, you can do it to me because I can handle it. You're no longer going to do that to people that I care about anymore.
Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Crystal. If you're new here, welcome. This is my channel where I talk about my experience while I was in Amway through an organization called LTD. I was in for about 1 year and 8 months, and these are my thoughts and reflections on what happened. Last video, I got to talk to Anna, who was in LTD for about 6 years, and she talked about all the things that she went through. And this is part 2 of that interview. So if you watched part 1, get ready for part 2 because it gets even more interesting. Sit back, enjoy, and come back after the video for ways that you can file with the FTC and also ways to contact me if you want to. Thanks. Enjoy. So you guys were putting all of your points on your credit cards.
Yeah. We were our upline, I remember it clear as day. It was when we were going, I think, platinum for the first time. It all kind of runs together, the 6 years, but I'm pretty sure it was when we were going platinum for the first time. I had never opened up a credit card before. And my upline was like, "You never opened up a credit card before?
I
Let's
heard
do it." And so we got on to Bank of America because Amway had a partnership with Bank of America. So we opened up an Amway credit card. And so I got qualified for like $2,000 at the time because it was my first credit card. And Jason got qualified for like 7 grand because he had already previously had one. And she goes, "Shoot, guys, that's $9,000 that you can put towards your business." So we legitimately registered for this credit card, got the credit card, maxed out the credit card in 1 day. 1 day.
Oh my gosh.
Because they were like, what you can do is just go ahead and buy the points and then you can sell everything offhand and that's what you'll use to pay off your credit card.
Okay, so how did that plan go?
Um,
So this is that simple. How did that go?
gosh, that sounds so easy. That sounds great. Let's do it. And so we were going platinum, right? And we had to kind of figure out the points because we didn't have the team to help us do that. And so we're like, cool, sounds good. Let's do it. So we maxed out our credit card, right? I get this giant shipment of products. Then, no joke, probably 70% of it just sat on a shelf
Wow.
because you can only the hard part about those businesses is that you can only sell so much to so many
Right.
people
Uh-huh.
before it just gets tired. Until you have to start, like, really putting yourself outside of your comfort zone of, like, going to people that you don't even know or businesses that you don't even know, and it's like, not everybody is comfortable or, like, willing or wanting to do that.
Mhm.
And, um, so our entire, like, us going emerald or, us going, platinum and helping out their emerald ship and us going Q12 and then us being part of their diamond ship was like 1000% smoke and mirrors. And um it it eats at you. Like after a while when the love bombing stops,
Mhm.
right? You get recognized, you do the thing. We had qualified Q12 like for 3 years in a row. So at that point, we weren't really like new the new it couple anymore. It was kind of like, the goal is to then help other people on your team do it, but we didn't have the team to help other people on our team do it. And so, like, we had people, but it wasn't I mean, I think the most people I ever had on my team was like 35,
I was gonna ask
40 maybe.
like, did people leave a lot, or did you have high turnover, or like, did you say you didn't have any people? But you had people, they just weren't buying, or?
Yeah, it was, so we had because our team was so young, we had a ton of turnover. It was like young kids getting in and out, young kids getting in and out. And it was like people were in for 6 months and did their part, and then they would go, and then we would replace them with other people that helped us out for a couple months, and then they would go. So it was a revolving door. So we were stuck at like 25 to 35 people for pretty much 5 out of the 6 years that I was in. Like, we never really could get past that point, and a lot of it was for multiple reasons, but a lot of it was the people that I ended up getting close to saw behind the smoke and mirrors, and they saw how miserable our life was,
Mm.
and how was I supposed to then tell them that they can be successful in this business when, like, my life isn't even that great. And so they were like, I ended up getting very close to people. Some of my very best friends I still talk to were part of my team at one point. And so they were staying in because they loved me, then like not necessarily trying to be successful. But that can only go so far until they're like, this isn't really doing me any good anymore. I love you. I want to be there for you, but I can't do this anymore. And so it was just kind of a revolving door business, and we had great people, but it can only go so far sometimes, and I was getting to the point where I was so tired. I mean, I was having to beg my team to be like, "Hey, can anyone do another 100 points? Can anyone, just put in another order? Can you guys, like, we're so close," or, it's just like it's begging at that point. I was begging family members to purchase things. I was begging, it's like you can only do that for so long before bridges get burned, and or you just are tired of it and you just don't want to do it anymore. Um, and so our marriage was not great, right? And what people don't what people don't realize when it comes to making those sacrifices. So we went platinum Q12,
Mhm.
and we were part of their diamond ship. So I have no problem dropping names. The people that we were personally sponsored by, their names are, and they are still in the business. And they're diamonds in the business, and we were their leg 3 for them going diamond. And the reason that I stayed in as long as I did was because I was getting the recognition for helping them go diamond,
Mm.
if that makes sense,
Mhm.
because it's a big deal. Like, it is a huge deal. They do a full-blown
Red carpet.
runway recognition for diamonds. So when you are not only a part of it, but personally sponsored by them, and then you're helping them go diamond, it's like you start kind of becoming not necessarily a big deal, but you start feeling important to that role. And so that's why we were doing the platinum thing. We were doing the Q12 thing over and over and over again, is to help them hit that status. Okay. And I say that, and I don't think people like register like what exactly that means. None of what we did was for Jason and Anna's benefit.
Say
None of
it
it.
say it again, girl.
It was 110% for them to go emerald and for them to go diamond.
Correct. Yep.
And I think that is where
Mhm.
the biggest disconnect is, in my opinion, in Amway, is it no longer becomes about the person that got started. It is all about helping your upline hit the next pin. And they don't realize the magnitude of that decision. So, like, we rallied behind them, right? Because they tell you, I did all this stuff for you, I was, a huge part of your life. Um, I've, given you presents, I've done this, I've helped you get I mean, it's like it's everything, and it's all, "Look at what I've done for you, now you are going to
Literally,
do that for me."
you read my mind. I was like, it's in the manipulation because they do things so that
100%.
they can bring it back up later and say, I did this for you. So now we're trying to go back, and
Yes.
the least you can do is do this for me. And you're like, at that point,
Yes.
you're like, you're right. You have helped me a lot. But have
Yep.
you? Because it was all strategic, you know?
Yes, right. 100%. That is key. That is literally what it is. It is a manipulation aspect on multiple levels. Level 1 is that where they're like, "I've done this for you. You can do this for me. Like, look at everything that I've invested into you. I've invested time, I've invested money, I've invested, trips, I've done this. Like, the least you could do is help us go diamond." Okay, that's level 1. Level 2, religious aspect, is I don't think people realize how big that is in LTD or in really any MLM. And they would tell me things like, "Well, if you push through, right? If you go through this and they would always say your greatest, like, problems that you have is gonna be your greatest weaknesses, and it's gonna be your testimony, and you're gonna be able to share it, and everything that you're going through, the fact that you had to move back in with Jason's parents, the fact that got evicted from your apartment, the fact that all of this stuff happened, you're gonna be able to share that,
Mhm.
and God's gonna bless you for it.
Don't get me started,
You're
girl.
gonna
Get
get
me started.
all of the blessings. You're gonna,
Yep,
it's just gonna rain blessings on you for everything that you've gone through.
yep. It's spiritual
Oh,
manipulation. Absolutely.
it is. Interesting. Hmm, let's see. Did I get blessings by getting evicted? Not sure about that. Did I get blessings by having to live in this unbelievable hellhole of a house for 3 years with Jason's family being the only, outside of his mom being the only girl, with 3 boys, a dad that's a whole 'nother story,
Yeah.
like, for 3 years, no, almost 3 years, like 2.5 years, we had to live with his parents because we could not afford our own place in a room. Okay, we were in an apartment by ourselves. We ended up moving into a room that, like, just to paint the picture of how disgusting this house was, the carpet had never been changed out in the 40 years that that house
Ooh,
was built. So
wow.
we were in nasty pink carpet
Cool.
bedroom.
Mm,
Okay,
mm,
we had to stuff all of our stuff in there. I was working from home at the time, so I couldn't really ever leave.
mm.
Uh, you know, they were 3 boys that were just nasty. I mean, it just, like, piles on, and then on top of that, like, I was never really comfortable there. Like, I didn't have a good relationship with his dad. Um, his dad kinda came on to me in weird ways that I wasn't comfortable with,
Yeah.
and I expressed that to Jason. He didn't get me out. Multiple things, right? Which is another reason why we got divorced, but it's like they say, "Oh, you're gonna get rained on blessings." And I'm like, there is no aspect of my life right now that I would wish or want anybody on my team to live with. So how can you tell me that God is going to bless me for doing all this stuff when everything that I've done is not gaining me any sort of benefit? You're telling me that I'm supposed to make money. We would get $17,500 bonuses, okay, in 1 month for going Q12.
Yeah.
The next month, we would not even a month. We would get the check, it would hit our bank account. "Oh my gosh, we have $20,000." We would take it out, they would showcase it to everybody, like, it was a whole parade. It was like a thing, like, if you went Q12, you had to take out the money,
Oh.
we would have a training, and you would show everyone at that training your cash.
Oh, okay, I remember this. I remember when okay, this
And
I
they
know
would
this one,
say,
yeah.
like, "This is what you can get," right? So we would do that, and then we would put all of it back into our bank account for legitimately the next day for us to spend $15,000 in one day so that we can make sure that we hit 7,500 points that month to go Q12.
So you couldn't pay off any of your cards, you couldn't pay off
Couldn't
anything?
pay off anything because we legitimately were so broke and we did not have the team to go like, when I say that we did that stuff, it was because we had made the commitment, right, to go Q12, and so or to help them go Emerald and help them go Diamond. And to me, when I give someone my word and then I make that commitment, I'm gonna stick through it through hell or high water, and that was kind of just my mentality with everything that I do. And also, it's like everyone in Amway knew that they were going Diamond, and so we weren't gonna be the one team that didn't help them make that happen, and because then it's like you're going to get disowned. Like, forget you. Who are you if you're going to be that one team that doesn't help them? So we were legitimately doing everything that we could because we didn't necessarily have the team or the business at the time to have made that run. Does that make sense? Like, if somebody took them going Diamond out of the equation, you wouldn't have looked at our team and gone, "That team's ready to go Q12," because
Oh,
we weren't.
mhm,
It
mhm.
was only because we were having to help them
Go
hit
Diamond.
that level,
Mhm.
and so that's why we were having to max out credit cards. That's why we were having to take our bonuses and put it right back into the business. I mean, we had like 15, atmospheres lined up because we were just getting shipments. It was like we were a warehouse of products.
Mhm.
And so they would use that manipulation aspect and be like, well, you're going to get God's blessings. Or vice versa. They would say, well, if you quit, God's no longer going to bless your life.
See, let me say something because I feel like as a believer, I think that's why it's important to know your Bible and to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ because people
Yes.
say things like that to you. And if you're not really aware, you're going to believe it. And you're going to be like, well, you're going to get manipulated. But I think that it's important to know that that's not how God operates. Like, once you know that
No.
you're like, "That's not even true." So them doing that to you is just disappointing because it's like, how do you use Jesus' name like that? Do you know what I mean? To get points, really?
100%, 100%. And I think that's where a lot of people have issues with religion and Christianity is honestly because of people like that. And it's sad. It's honestly just so sad. And I love what you said about like you want to make sure that you personally know the Bible, know your relationship because it is true. It's a manipulation aspect. They would tell you, and if you don't have that relationship with God, you would believe them. And so they would be like, well, if you quit and you give up, God's no longer going to bless your life. You're not going to get God's blessings. And then on top of that, they would do meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And it's like, how many times do you have to say the same freaking thing over and over and over again? But it's a mind game. They do it to just drain it in you. It is like a cult. It is robotic. It is the same thing over and over and over and over and over because it's like at some point, it's just going to be what you believe because you hear it so much. And then they would do late night meetings. So you're exhausted and then you're hearing this stuff. Like you would be a zombie. Like I would literally be sitting there like half asleep, not able to like keep my body up, but I'm still listening and it's all a tactic. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the psychology of that stuff, like it's literally to just grain that into your subconscious so that one day when you randomly make a decision, you go, where did that come from? It's
Yes.
come from everything that you've been hearing and you had no idea.
That's deep.
Yeah,
It's deep.
it is. It is. And I think as like somebody getting started, you don't understand the magnitude of that. And it's like it's sad because there's really two levels of people in the business. There's people who get in and they're in for a couple months, maybe a year, doesn't really affect a ton of their life, and then they leave. But then there's people that are in for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, and it's like, you just don't realize the magnitude of, like, the circumstances, of, like, what is actually being said and done to you until you take a step back.
Mhm.
And I guess to kind of put a bow around kind of why I left and all of that stuff, and it's like, when you go through that, um I'm gonna try to do this without getting emotional. I mean, it's I went through things that, like, no one should ever go through in their life, of, like, your first marriage being horrible and you being mistreated, and then on top of that, you're broke and your husband won't support you in things that are serious to you, and then, on top of that, I was alone. I lived in Chicago basically by myself. My family was in Nashville at the time, and I didn't really have a great relationship with them, and for good reason. I mean, I missed out on family events. I missed out on family vacations. I didn't go to birthdays. I canceled on things last minute. For the business, and because they would tell you that if people don't support you, you don't need them.
Yep, they sure would.
And if they don't believe in what you're doing, to heck with them. Which kinda is like, you're a Christian and you're talking about God, but yeah, you can just, like, shove people to the side with no rhyme or reason, it's like there it's so backwards. But so it's like they would tell you, "Okay, well, if family doesn't support you, don't see them. Don't go to visit them." I missed Christmases. I missed, my family planned a Disney trip, and I told them I would go, and legit 2 weeks before we went, I told them I couldn't go.
And
And it's like, it's things like that. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but, like, to my family, it's like, how many times are they gonna take that before being like, "Anna, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't keep having a relationship with you when you're doing stuff like this." And so, it was the fact that, like, um, had, like I said, I had no money. We were in, like, $50,000 worth of debt. I was living in this house. I had a horrible relationship with my family. I wasn't in love with, the guy that I married. And so it's like all of that stuff, right, was happening in my life while we were still helping them continue to go diamond. We helped them go diamond, but then, like, keep the level of diamond. All of this stuff was spiraling in my life, and I went numb with it, like, just numb. And for about a year and a half, I just coasted in my life. I was still in the business, I was still doing the things, but, like, I was disconnected. It was like I was, like, floating, like I was a floating person. Because at some point, it just was like, "This isn't me. This isn't what I want to do with my life. This isn't who I normally would be, but I'm so freaking deep that how do I get out?" And I would felt so trapped that I just became numb to it. And so I had a conversation with my mom and my aunt in a hotel room about a year and a half before I ended up actually leaving my ex and the business. And I kind of told them how I was feeling. And they were like, "You need to leave the business. Like, you need to be done. Like, this is not okay. You are not okay. Like, things need to change." And I think it was at that point, I had invested so much time and had done so much stuff that I wasn't proud of, that I was like, I almost needed to feel like I needed to kind of stick it out and like it's kind of backwards, but it was like I was so invested and I was like I had spent 5 years of my life at that point freaking grinding and doing the thing and making it happen and doing everything that I needed to do. How the heck am I going to just walk
Well,
away?
yeah.
And, like, that's where my mindset was like, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't know this wasn't good for me anymore, it was like, how do I do that? I've sacrificed so much, I've turned into somebody that I don't even like, I've done all of these things, like, and now I'm just gonna walk away? What like, it's almost like you look at your 5 years and you're like, "Am I okay just leaving that and going, well, that's 5 years of my life I'm never gonna get back," and
Mhm.
being okay with that, and I wasn't at that point in my life yet, and so a year went by, and honestly, what did it for me was things still weren't great with my marriage, I was still living in the house, all of that stuff, but what really did it in for me was 2 things. 1, my upline was stealing money from me, and 2, they were manipulating my downline's lives, and I all of a sudden something triggered in me, and I wasn't okay with that anymore. I was like, "You can do it to me because I can handle it. You're no longer going to do that to people that I care about anymore." And and the fact that they were stealing money from me, so because we weren't quite at 7,500 points because of, like, the team that we had. We were hovering around, like, 4,000, 5,000 points. Well, they still needed to have their status and go diamond, and so it's like, I was at this point that I had had that conversation and with my parents, and it's like, you where I was I had invested so much time and energy, and I had made the sacrifices, I'd done the things, I had put things on the back burner that I wanted to accomplish. I had taken jobs that I didn't want to. It's like so much of my life I had put on hold for this stupid business at the time. And it's like I wasn't quite at that point where I was ready to just go, okay, I'm done. Like I can be done. And it was a weird thing because at that point I had people on my team that I was very close to, that kinda relied on me, that, like, I had developed really tight relationships with, and I was still married, and I'm like, "Okay, realistically, how do we make this happen?" But then 2 things happened, like I said, my upline started stealing money from us. We were kinda hovering around 4,000 points, and that's kinda where our team was, where the business was, like, month after month, we were kind of ending around 4,000, 5,000 points. So we had to make up that, like, 3,000, 2,500, 3,500 points that, um, for to keep their diamond ship, we
Mhm.
needed to stay at that 7,500 point level. But our team just wasn't there. And honestly, we were just tired, exhausted from like doing it year after year, month after month without doing it the right way of like having enough people to help you do that. We were doing it so light that it was like the people that were constantly having to ask and like put in money. It was just we were just tired. And so we were constantly hovering around that 5,000 point level. Well, then again, smoke and mirrors would come into our business, log into, Adams International at the time, and put in their own credit card and spend the money to get us to 7,500 points so that they could keep their diamond chip. Smoke and mirrors. Like, this is the type of stuff that happens that people don't think happens.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that it happens to like, if I were to put a number on it, probably 65% or higher of the people are like that. Because the business is hard. It's hard and exhausting, and it's like, how can you possibly be successful for that long? Doing it a little shady sometimes, possibly, you know?
Yeah.
And so they had to do that, okay? And for a long time, because Jason was the man of the household, I could never really look at finances. And I never was able to really like look and take a look and see what was going on. He just would kept saying, we're too broke, we can't move out, can't do this, it's just not working. Well, come to find out that, so for instance, if we ended up at, let's just say 5,000 points, Amway would tell you what your projected paycheck is going to be. So it would be like, let's just say $1,500, right? Or $1,800 or something like that. And I'm like, well, shoot, Jace, like with my income, with your Ubering, like, and then we're making an extra $1,800, like, how can we be that broke? It doesn't make sense to me, Like, we were spending a good amount of money in the business at that point, but not like what we used to do. And we'll come to find out what was happening was, so we would project to be at like $1,800. Well, then came in and put in that extra money to help us get from 5,000 to 75,000, or 5,000 and 75,000, 7,500, excuse me. Our projected paycheck would jump from $1,800 to like 3 grand, let's say.
Okay. Mhm.
And because we hit a different level. So my thought process is, well, we'll keep the 1,800, you guys keep whatever else was there of the 3,000, right? Like, because we would have kept $1,800 regardless
Mhm.
of if we didn't have to help you stay plat or stay diamond and go 7,500 points, we'd be making $1,800. So
Right.
my thought process was, we'll keep that, you guys keep the rest. Well, was messaging Jason, and I guess coming up with this like different way of calculating the amount of money that they spent and the like percentage that we were at, and he was doing calculations because he was, the accounting guy. And we were sending them, so say we made $3,000, Jason was sending him like $2,500 of it, month after month after month after
Why
month. And I'm like,
why was he doing this?
because he trusted, he had made that connection. It was a manipulation aspect. Why would you tell me things that weren't true? Like, it's
Oh.
religion, right? It is as if they are your
God.
God.
It is. And they tell you to blindly trust your upline, which I was like,
Yes.
"No, you no," but that's what they encourage you to do. They're your upline for a reason. You just have to just blindly trust them,
Yes.
and they are
Yep.
your God.
Yep. You view them like a God. And it is wild because you would think going into it, there's no way. That's crazy talk. How could someone ever think about doing that?
Yep.
But after years and years of that mentality being drained into your brain, after the manipulation, after everything, that's why it's very cults like. You kind of end up looking at them like they're your God. It's wild.
Right.
And so that was how Jason perceived, would come in and go, you owe me $2,500. Okay. Send it blindly without even thinking about it. And then I'm like, they're stealing our money. Do you not see that? Does that not comprehend? Like, they're legitimately stealing the money that we worked hard and earned.
Yeah.
And I got pissed because I'm like, we're the only reason we're even doing this whole 7,500 point thing is because you need to keep your status to go diamond. Like, what?
Yeah.
And so for some reason, that whole thing, plus, and was telling like my team how to live their life. It's again the manipulation aspect, but like my team or people on my team are like come to me for like relationship advice, marriage advice, kid advice, and I would like tell them what to do.
Oh my god.
And one of my closest friends lost a parent during the time that she was in Amway
Mhm.
and kind of was taking a little bit of a step back from the business and was like trying to spend more time with their kids, doing different things, and like didn't know how to kind of navigate all of it. And so she basically was kind of like, after kind of dealing with all of that, she was thinking about like leaving her husband because it was a bad situation. She just lost her parent. Like there was a lot going on. And so she went to him for advice and was basically like, well, if you leave your husband, like you're gonna end up like a single mom, like your mom was, and look at how that ended. And like, I mean, just manipulation stuff. Like, well, you're gonna be a terrible parent if you leave your kids or whatever. And like, but that it wasn't just her, it was a bunch of people. I mean, she was doing that to a ton of people on my team. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, I can't sit here anymore and
Yeah.
pretend like this is okay and pretend like I'm not hearing any of this. Like I had hit a breaking point with the fact that my life was the way it was, with the fact that my relationship with my family was horrible, with the fact that I had no money.
Yeah.
I was getting, money stolen from me. And then now on top of it, people that I care deeply about, you're now manipulating. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And
Ugh.
so I literally called my mom and I was like, I'm done. I'm doing it. I'm leaving. What's the plan? What do I have to do?
Yeah.
And so fast forward, I ended up legitimately like I called her the next day. I packed all my stuff. My sister at the time, or my sister was in Nashville and then she ended up moving to Chicago. So I had my sister in Chicago with me. So I packed up everything that I could. And I told Jason, I'm leaving. I'm done. That was a whole situation where it was not a good conversation by any means. And then like to a point where like it was not good.
Yeah.
And so I just picked up everything. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I moved in with her until I got things situated to like make the move to Nashville. So I ended up like messaging and I basically just told her, I don't want advice. I don't really care what you have to say. I'm done. This is what's happening. Like, because, and I'll tell you why I did that. Because if you give them an inch, with the amount of manipulation that was in my brain for 6 years, or whoever it is, or however long they're in, with the amount of manipulation that is in your brain at that time, if you give them an inch, they will convince you not to leave. If you don't just make the choice and say, I'm done, I don't care what you have to say to me,
Mhm.
you won't leave. If you give them any sort of wiggle room to give you advice, it's a trap. They will tell you God's not gonna bless you. They will give you everything they've got to not have you leave. So you just need to say, I'm just letting you know. I don't want advice. I'm just telling you, I'm done. I'm leaving. Have a great life. And I think she messaged me and was like, I wish that you would have talked to me about this. I wish that we would have had an open conversation with how you were feeling. But if this is a choice that you want to make, then I have to respect it. And that was it. I have not heard from her. I
Yeah.
have not gotten any, but it's like that also though is a level of what?
Yeah.
I put in 6 years of my life. You said that I had this girl tribe, I had you in my corner for the rest of my. Oh, that was only when I was in the business?
Um,
That was only when I was helping you make money? That was only when it's like the relationships are so
Fake.
fake. They're so
Fake.
fake.
Absolutely.
And you don't really realize that until you're out. And then you get defriended by everybody. And then you get shunned, you get blocked, you get whatever. And then you're like, oh. no, I'm like alone now. Okay. Okay. Guess none of those relationships were real. The whole 6 years that I just spent in that business. Cool.
Mhm.
And so it takes time, especially if you were in for a long time, to really start to like love yourself again and know like that you're gonna be okay. So I ended up leaving. I went through the whole divorce. I moved to Nashville. Well, fast forward, I've been in Nashville for a little over a year now, and I honestly am at a point in my life that I actually would say thank you to that girl that went through everything,
Oh.
because I am so much of a stronger person for going through it. Now, I wish that I didn't.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would tell people not to go through what I went through, but I am such a stronger person. I learned so much about myself. I learned what's important to me through that whole process. And I moved to Nashville. I'm close to my family. I've redeveloped that relationship. It's the best it's ever been. I met the love of my life. We actually got engaged this past weekend, and thank you. And if you were to see my life now, the relationships I have, the friends that I have, the money that I make, the job that I have, it's like you wouldn't even recognize the person that I was a year and a half ago.
Oh.
And I say all of that because if there is anybody that is remotely feeling like they're in that situation that I was, Amway and your uplines will tell you that you will suffer. You will not get God's blessing. Nothing will be successful in your life if you leave the business. And that is the furthest thing from the truth that I could ever explain to anybody. And if that helps one person, if that saying makes one person make that choice, and everything that I went through was worth it. And that's why I'm open to like sharing what I went through. But like it was freaking hard. And it's not it's not for everybody, that's why people get stuck. That's why people are in it for a long time. They kind of just end up becoming numb and they just do it. But for those people that are in that point where they're thinking about leaving, like they're going to tell you that you can't do it, and you 100% can do it. And my life is the best it's ever been after leaving the business. And um it's just it's wild to kind of think back and say thank you for going through that. But legitimately, like, I'm so freaking proud of that girl. I'm so freaking thankful that she didn't give up. And it was, weirdly worth it at the end. But if I were to tell people, not to do it, I would tell them not to do it. But the biggest thing that I can give to anybody that's thinking about it, right? If they're like, "Ooh, should I do this business? Is an MLM a good idea?" Or whatever, right? One, I'm never ever going to tell people flat out, don't do it. Because at the end of the day, I'm not gonna run your life. I'm not gonna tell you what you should and should not do. I'll give you advice, and I'll say the best advice I can give somebody is, if you're going to do it, if you're going to join any sort of MLM, just don't lose you in the process. Don't lose what's important to you. Don't let a business, a silly business, people that you don't even know truly, right, dictate what is important to you in your life, because that's what I did. And that's how I ended up 6 years in the business, is that I ended up losing what made me me. And when you lose that, then that's their latch. They then have control over, you're like their little puppet. Once you lose what makes you you. When you have that, you don't really have problems telling them no to things, because other things are important to you. But when the business becomes everything that you do, you know what I mean? So that would be probably my biggest advice that I could give somebody if they're thinking about doing it, is just make sure that you stay you, because that business does a really good job of taking that out of the equation.
Yeah. What about advice for those people who are like, I don't care what you say, I'm going diamond. What advice would you give them?
Um, be prepared to be kind of live a lonely life. And the reason I say that is because you're really only going to have the people on your team. Like I I saw the life of somebody going diamond, and I guess if you want to do it, go for it. I think it takes a very special person to go diamond, in the sense of you have to be okay doing shady stuff. You have to be okay
Yeah.
kind of manipulating people. You have to be okay, giving up your entire being and doing that business. And if you're okay with that, sure, go for it. But I saw people try to go diamond and I saw what it did to their lifestyle, and it looks cool. Excuse me. It looks cool on the outside. On the inside, it's not that cool. It really isn't. I mean, I don't know now. It's been a little bit of time, but when I was in and went diamond, nothing about their lifestyle changed. Like, she got a fancy car, cool. Okay. She was able to get free. She was already free, right? I guess was able to walk away from his job, and that was cool. But like outside of that, it's not like they moved into a new house. It's
Mhm.
not like they were able to like go and take cool trips and not, I mean, their mind was always on the business. They were at every meeting. They were at every, I mean, it's like nothing really changed. So they make more money. Okay. It's like just be prepared that it's maybe not all it's cracked up to be. I think that for people that want to go diamond, it turns into being about you. And if you're okay with that, go for it. But if you're not a person that's okay with everything being about you, then it's not going to be for you.
Wow. Anna, that was phenomenal. That was
Thank you.
eye-opening, and I really appreciate your courage and your candor and just sharing everything that you went through. And I was shocked. I was so shocked at some things that I've heard, but I like what you said about you're proud of that girl and you thank her for going through that. You wouldn't do it again, but you know,
No, of course not.
but you're
But
thank
if it got me to where I'm at now, but it's like if somebody can avoid it.
sure.
So
Yeah, thank you so, so much, Anna. This was great.
I really, really appreciate you giving me and people the platform to share things like this. I wish that there was more out there like something like this, as far as giving the people the opportunity to share their story, because um it's a lot and it can help people, but at the same time, like sometimes when you go through that stuff, you don't get that platform and then you don't really get the opportunity to help somebody. So I really appreciate you allowing me to be on here and share my story and be raw and be real and have a safe space to be able to do that. So thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. I think the world needs to hear more of it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Anna. Leave your comments below. How did you feel about her experience? Would you want to go platinum in Q12 after hearing that? I thought it was interesting, all the things she said about her marriage, about them really being broke, even though they had such a high status. I'm not surprised though, because that tends to be the story that I'm getting from lots of people that I'm talking to and even interviewing. So I hope you enjoyed that interview. If you would like to contact me, email me. My information is down below. If you leave a comment, I will reply to it. So just let me know what you think. And if you want to share your story, feel free to email me. Thanks to those who have been emailing me. Thanks to those that have just been sharing their story without wanting to be on my channel. Thanks so much just for just venting, you know, letting us all know that we're not alone in the experience that we've gone through. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.